Welcome to Surviving Sepsis Campaign, 2021 versus 2026 Guidelines. This comprehensive review compares the 2021 guidelines with the new 2026 recommendations, focusing on practical, high-yield clinical applications designed specifically for internal medicine residents and medical students. Understanding the evolution of sepsis guidelines is crucial for delivering evidence-based, life-saving care. Before we begin, it's important to note that this presentation is for educational purposes only. Always consult the full Surviving Sepsis Campaign 2026 guidelines for complete recommendations. Clinical judgment and institutional protocols should guide all clinical decisions. This content does not replace professional medical advice or clinical expertise. Use this material to supplement, not substitute, your clinical training and experience. Remember, education is a foundation, but clinical wisdom and judgment are essential. By the end of this presentation, you will be able to identify at least 5 key changes between the SSC 2021 and 2026 guidelines. You'll learn how to apply the updated sepsis screening and antibiotic administration recommendations in clinical scenarios. You'll understand the evidence supporting prolonged beta-lactam infusion in sepsis. And you'll grasp the new post-sepsis care domain and its clinical implications. These clear goals will guide your learning through the 2026 updates. Why does this comparison matter? Sepsis remains a leading cause of in-hospital mortality, affecting approximately 49 million cases per year globally with 13 million deaths. Guidelines evolve as new evidence emerges, and translating research into bedside practice improves patient outcomes. This knowledge is essential for rounds in the emergency department and in ICU management. Staying current with guidelines directly impacts your ability to save lives and optimize patient care. Let's start with a quick overview of the 2021 guidelines. The 2021 Surviving Sepsis Campaign guidelines informed the SSC Hour 1 bundle elements. They recommended 30 milliliters per kilogram of crystalloid fluid resuscitation, highlighted early antibiotic administration and rapid source control, and advocated for dynamic measures to guide fluid therapy. These guidelines solidified the importance of early, aggressive, and protocolized care in sepsis. Now, let's look at the 2026 update. The 2026 guidelines introduce code sepsis protocols and pre-hospital screening. They upgrade prolonged beta-lactam infusion to a strong recommendation with moderate certainty, a major upgrade from 2021. The guidelines strengthen respiratory support guidance with high-flow nasal cannula and add awake proning as a new intervention. And they expand post-sepsis recovery recommendations into a new formal domain. Overall, the 2026 update refines existing protocols and introduces new evidence-based strategies for personalized sepsis care. Despite all the updates, several core principles have remained unchanged. Sepsis is still a medical emergency requiring immediate treatment. The initial fluid resuscitation remains 30 milliliters per kilogram of 4-crystalloid. Early administration of appropriate antimicrobials and rapid source control are still paramount. Norepinephrine remains the first-line vasopressor. Low tidal volume ventilation of 6 milliliters per kilogram is still recommended for ARDS. And a restrictive transfusion strategy with a trigger around 7 grams per deciliter, though not guided by hemoglobin alone, is still recommended. The core pillars of sepsis management, early recognition, fluids, and antibiotics, remain unchanged. Let's look at the top changes at a glance. First, NEWS, MUSE, and SIRS are now strengthened over QSOFA for screening. Prolonged beta-lactam infusion has been upgraded to a strong recommendation with moderate certainty. There's a new recommendation to avoid empiric anaerobic coverage unless specific risk factors are present. MAP targets of 60 to 65 millimeters of mercury in patients 65 years and older is new. Peripheral vasopressor initiation is now an explicit conditional recommendation. And there's a new nuanced recommendation to suggest an initial fluid bolus followed by vasopressors if hypotension persists, with the caveat that in unstable shock, concurrent administration may be warranted. The 2026 guidelines move towards more precise, individualized targets and away from some older screening tools. What else is new in 2026? The Performance Improvement Program has been expanded to include quality improvement strategies as a strong recommendation. There are new conditional recommendations for code sepsis or sepsis huddle protocols. Pre-hospital antibiotics for septic shock with more than 60 minutes delay to hospital evaluation are now recommended. A standardized sepsis terminology framework, definite, probable, possible, and unlikely, is new. Awake proning for non-intubated patients is a new conditional recommendation. And active fluid removal or de-resuscitation after the acute phase is new. Overall, 2026 emphasizes system-wide quality improvement and multidisciplinary team responses to sepsis. Now, let's dive into one of the most important new frameworks: standardized sepsis terminology. The key principle here is that shock status overrides the terminology tier. For patients with definite or probable sepsis, regardless of shock status, antibiotics should be given within 1 hour. This is a strong recommendation. For patients with possible sepsis who are in shock, antibiotics should also be given within 1 hour. However, for patients with possible sepsis without shock, rapid assessment is recommended, and antibiotics should be given within 3 hours if concern for infection persists. This is conditional. For patients with unlikely sepsis and no shock, antibiotics should be deferred while continuing close monitoring. This framework balances early treatment for true sepsis against the harms of unnecessary antibiotics in non-infectious conditions. Let's discuss fluids and resuscitation updates. 30 milliliters per kilogram of crystalloid remains the standard for initial resuscitation. However, there's a suggestion to use balanced crystalloids over normal saline. The certainty of evidence has been upgraded from low to moderate, though the recommendation remains conditional. Starches are strongly recommended against, and gelatins are conditionally recommended against. After the initial 30 milliliters per kilogram, if hypoperfusion persists, either a liberal or restrictive strategy can be used. The Clovers trial showed no difference. Active fluid removal after the acute resuscitation phase is now suggested. Remember, for patients with a BMI greater than 30, use adjusted or ideal body weight, and for traumatic brain injury, use normal saline. While the initial volume remains the same, the choice of fluid, balanced crystalloids, and ongoing assessment are critical. Now for vasopressors and hemodynamics. The initial MAP target of 65 millimeters of mercury remains standard. However, there's a new suggestion for MAP of 60 to 65 millimeters of mercury in patients 65 years and older. Based on the 65 trial, this is conditional with low certainty. The recommendation is to suggest an initial fluid bolus followed by vasopressors if hypotension persists, though this is conditional with very low certainty. Importantly, in unstable shock, concurrent administration of fluids and vasopressors may be warranted. Starting vasopressors peripherally to avoid delay is now explicitly recommended. Norepinephrine remains first line. For escalating doses, suggest adding vasopressin, then epinephrine. For septic shock with cardiac dysfunction and persistent hypoperfusion despite adequate resuscitation, consider adding dobutamine to norepinephrine or using epinephrine alone. Levosimendan is suggested against. Either invasive or non-invasive blood pressure monitoring is acceptable. Early peripheral vasopressors are preferred over delayed central access, and MAP targets may be adjusted for older adults. Let's talk about antibiotics and source control. First, collect blood cultures before antibiotics. This is a strong recommendation. Prolonged infusion of beta-lactams for maintenance is now a strong recommendation with moderate certainty. The number needed to treat is approximately 40, with a 95% confidence interval of 24 to 125, based on the BLING-3 trial and meta-analysis. For septic shock with anticipated more than 60 minutes delay to hospital evaluation, pre-hospital antibiotics are suggested. Avoid empiric anaerobic coverage unless specific risk factors are present. Multi-drug resistant coverage has conditional recommendations both for and against, depending on risk factors. Source control should ideally occur within 6 hours of diagnosis. In low-resistance settings, selective decontamination of the digestive tract is suggested. Timely, appropriate antibiotics and source control are non-negotiable, but diagnostic stewardship, cultures first, is emphasized. Aggressive early treatment must be paired with equally aggressive de-escalation and stewardship. De-escalation is recommended when cultures and susceptibilities are available. This is a strong recommendation with very low certainty. De-escalation is suggested when no pathogens are identified on final cultures. Shorter over longer antibiotic duration is suggested with adequate source control. The BALANCE trial supports 7 versus 14 days of therapy. Procalcitonin plus clinical evaluation is suggested to guide discontinuation, based on the ADAPT sepsis trial. Continuous reassessment is essential. Discontinue antibiotics if an alternative diagnosis is confirmed. De-escalation reduces antimicrobial resistance and improves patient outcomes. Let's discuss respiratory support updates. High-flow nasal cannula is suggested over conventional oxygen for patients with a PaO2 to FiO2 ratio less than 200 or SpO2 to FiO2 ratio less than 235. This is conditional with very low certainty. HFNC is suggested over non-invasive positive pressure ventilation as initial therapy. HFNC is also suggested over alternating HFNC and NIPPV. Awake proning for non-intubated patients with hypoxemic respiratory failure is new and conditional with very low certainty. Importantly, evidence for awake proning comes from COVID-19 studies only, so we should be cautious about generalizing these findings to non-COVID sepsis patients. No sedation should be used during awake proning. Tidal volumes of 6 to 8 milliliters per kilogram of ideal body weight are suggested for patients without ARDS. For ARDS patients, maintain low tidal volumes of 6 milliliters per kilogram and plateau pressure of 30 centimeters of water or less. HFNC is now the preferred first-line non-invasive respiratory support, and awake proning is a low-cost, widely applicable intervention. For steroids and adjunctive therapy, for corticosteroids are suggested for septic shock requiring ongoing vasopressors. This is conditional with low certainty. A typical dose is 200 milligrams of hydrocortisone equivalent per 24 hours. For vitamin C is now suggested against. This is conditional with low certainty based on the Lovett trial. Venovenous ECMO for severe ARDS failing conventional therapy remains an option. Stress ulcer prophylaxis with proton pump inhibitors is suggested for patients with risk factors for gastrointestinal bleeding. This is a conditional recommendation with moderate certainty. Antipyretic therapy, beta blockers, probiotics for immunoglobulins, blood purification techniques, polymyxin B hemoperfusion, and vitamin D therapy are all suggested against all conditional recommendations. In practice, 88.4% of the expert panel uses steroids in septic shock. Corticosteroids have a role in refractory shock, but routine use of metabolic cocktails like vitamin C is not supported. For monitoring and reassessment, guide resuscitation to decrease elevated serum lactate. This is conditional with low certainty. Capillary refill time is a valuable adjunct, revisited as conditional with low certainty based on the Andromeda shock trial. Measure oxygenation by either SpO2 or arterial blood gas in conjunction with clinical assessment. This is a new conditional recommendation. Here's a critical equity caveat. Pulse oximetry is less accurate in shock in patients with darker skin tones and when SpO2 is less than 90% or greater than 97%. Either higher oxygen targets of SpO2 96% or greater or lower targets of 90 to 93% are suggested depending on patient factors. Either invasive or non-invasive blood pressure monitoring is acceptable. There is insufficient evidence to recommend minimally invasive or non-invasive cardiac output monitoring. Lactate clearance and capillary refill time are practical bedside tools to assess the adequacy of your resuscitation efforts. Post-sepsis care is an entirely new domain in the 2026 guidelines, a major expansion from 2021. Suggest offering post-critical illness follow-up services. This is conditional with low certainty. Suggest offering physical rehabilitation after discharge for those who were mechanically ventilated for more than 48 hours, conditional with low certainty. Suggest offering mental health support services after discharge, conditional with low certainty. Comprehensive medication reconciliation using a pharmacist-based approach at transitions of care is recommended. Health systems should ensure patients can execute advanced directives before discharge. This is a good practice statement. Surviving the acute phase is just the beginning. Comprehensive post-sepsis care is vital for long-term recovery. Let's summarize the practical take-home points. First, suspect sepsis early and activate your team with a code sepsis protocol. Give 30 milliliters per kilogram of balanced crystalloids and start antibiotics fast. Don't delay vasopressors waiting for a central line. Start peripherally. Use NEWS or SIRS for screening, not just QSOFA. Target MAP 60 to 65 in patients 65 years and older. Prolonged beta-lactam infusion saves lives with a number needed to treat of approximately 40. This is a major change. Avoid routine anti-anaerobic coverage unless specific risk factors are present. Screen regularly for ARDS, which is often under-recognized. Be proactive, use the right screening tools, resuscitate aggressively but smartly, and constantly reassess your patient. In summary, the 2026 guidelines refine, rather than replace, the 2021 principles. Prolonged beta-lactam infusion is now a strong recommendation. Respiratory support guidance with high-flow nasal cannula and awake proning is new. Post-sepsis care is now a formal domain with specific recommendations. Key trials driving these changes include BLING-3 for beta-lactams, CLOVERS for fluids, REVISE for stress ulcer prophylaxis, the 65 trial for MAP targets, BALANCE for antibiotic duration, and SCREEN for electronic alerts in 60,055 patients. Note that Andromeda Shock 2, SUDICU, and EVERDAC were published after the guidelines were finalized. Always read the full guidelines and apply clinical judgment. The 2026 updates provide sharper tools for personalized sepsis care, but clinical vigilance remains your best asset.